Good morning again, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for all of the hard work that you have put in over the last 2.5 hours in discussions of issues that are critical to the Rhode Island small business community. We certainly appreciate all that you have done. I know the chairs will be giving their reports to our distinguished panel here, and I want to take an opportunity to welcome to this facility the Lieutenant Governor Dan McKee, Secretary of State Nellie Gorbea, General Treasurer Seth Magaziner, Chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, Senator Dan DaPonte, and of course the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Speaker Mattiello. We are in this fantastic facility at the good graces and the approval of the president of this great university here at Bryant. I am personally very appreciative, Mr. President, for everything that you have done to facilitate not only this meeting, but all of the meetings that we have had here at Bryant University. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, the president of Bryant University, the Honorable Ronald K. Machtley.
Thank you very much, Mark. And on behalf of Bryant University, we would like to welcome all of you to Smithfield, Rhode Island, and to Bryant University. It's particularly a great honor to have the Lieutenant Governor here, the Secretary of State, the Treasurer, the Speaker of the House, and the Chairman of the Senate Finance Committee here with us today. This building, the Academic Innovation Center, which opened in September, in December of this year received the award from College and Planning magazine as the best new facility in the country. It's designed by EYP out of Boston. It was a facility which took about 5 years for us to really think about and to conceptually develop so that we would have the opportunity to create innovators, not just out of a few students, but out of every student who goes through our program, and for many others like yourselves who come and have to think about the problems and the issues that we have to face in today's world. We believe that innovation is a term which is mostly misunderstood, mostly not practiced in a scientific process, but we've been working for a number of years in really embedding the concepts and the ideas of design thinking, which are the concepts that created this building. Working in teams, collaboratively, showing great curiosity and creativity as to how do you solve problems and systems and issues. Making sure that you have what's called integrative thinking, which is not just assuming one idea is better than another, but how do you find the third idea between the two, which is going to help you to succeed. And one of the ideas that we think is very important is what's happening right here, and that's called connectivity. Not having the same people who do the same thing in the same team trying to find a unique and different solution. It's getting a lot of different people together who have different ideas and different views and helping to come out with a unique idea. And the final idea of innovation, if you're going to be an innovator and if you're going to solve the problems, is having grit, passion, and the ability to fail. Ideas are not always the first idea that are successful. You have to fail. And that's something that in higher education and in our world today no one wants to face up to. But you have to try things, experiment, and then come up with the final product. So our hope is that in this Academic Innovation Center today, with the distinguished panel that we have, the leaders of Rhode Island and the business leaders, that through this process you can work in teams and come up with innovative ideas that will maybe not work at first, but can be perfected to succeed ultimately. So we welcome you to this facility. I'm very appreciative of the government leaders coming here to work with you. When I was in Congress, I served on the Small Business Committee. Small businesses are the engine that drive our country and drive the economy. So what you're doing is very important for the economy of Rhode Island and for all of us. And Mark, we certainly thank you for the years that you have led this effort in developing a connection between small businesses and government. Thank you all very much for being here.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As I've said, this is I have 3 more to go after this one. So hopefully it will be very successful. The process today is about providing to our leadership here in the state of Rhode Island all of the discussions, or at least some of the discussions that you had in the breakout rooms. And I know, having gone to a number of the breakout rooms, there were some very lively discussions about topics that are important to the business community. So we're going to begin with the committee reports. And the first committee report is the Committee on Economic Development. It is chaired by Mark Dion, and the vice chair is Bill McCourt. Mark Dion.
I got applause, my God. I want to thank Bill McCourt for helping me throughout the year, and all of the people that participated both throughout the year and the people that attended the session this morning. It was a lively debate. I will tell all the attendees, you do have a list of our 15, soon to be 16 recommendations in your packages, and members of the distinguished panel, you have a copy of them as well. I have been known to seldom take advice, but I got some excellent advice from a woman in my group this morning. Her name was Deborah. I won't disclose her last name. And she said, we have 16 recommendations, and she said, Jiminy Crickets. Well, she didn't say that. She said something else. And she said, don't tell them the 16. She said, only tell them the 8 that they can do this year. She said, we've been doing this year after year after year. She said, only tell them the 8 that they can do now that will save the state money, that will make us more business friendly, and that can be implemented in this legislative session. So Mark's probably clocking time, and I'm going to talk really fast. First, access to capital. The General Assembly should reinstate the SBA guarantee fee tax credit, which was rescinded in 2004. It will cost the state no money. It will have a phenomenal impact on access to capital for small businesses in the state under the SBA 7A and 504 loan program. 2, address the minimum corporate tax. The General Assembly in 2015 and in 2016 did address it. They reduced it to $475. Then they reduced it to $450. It's going to get reduced again. If you're a company and you just lost $20,000, I don't care if it's $100, $300, or $400, where are you going to get the money to pay the corporate minimum tax? So there should be some graduated level, and we have proposed a bunch of solutions that can be used in order to make this an effective tax, but one that's affordable. 3, address the unemployment insurance and temporary disability insurance and job development tax funds. TDI, paid by the employees. We're one of 5 states that requires people to pay a state insurance program for TDI. If you can get TDI, if you can get all of the benefits cheaper from a private insurance provider, why don't we allow them to do that? It would save the employee a significant amount of money. Unemployment, we need to review our unemployment. We're one of the highest fee states. We're one of the most lucrative benefit states and one of the longest term payment states in the nation. This impacts the employers. It's something that we should address to see how we can make ourselves competitive. 4, lean process improvement. Unfortunately, the director of DEM is not here, but I understand that Director Coit did a phenomenal job re-improving their lean process improvement program. And I know that the state government has decided to reach out to other state agencies in order to do this. If it's so good, if it's so user-friendly, if it's so cost-effective, why don't we immediately have every state agency engage in lean process improvement? 5, technical assistance and matching fund initiative, which was mentioned this morning. The state should take every effort to leverage every federal and non-state dollar available for technical assistance programs in the state of Rhode Island. It doesn't mean that we go after everything regardless of whether or not the program is effective or not, but CWE, SBDC, PTAC, and a bunch of other initiatives, Polaris, MEP, are just some where if the state actually made a commitment of dollars, we could maximize what we could get, not just some of what we could get. Additionally, we recommend that this be a line item issue in the budget, so every single one of these organizations doesn't have to come with their hands out every single year. It should be a long-term commitment on the part of state government. Energy cost infrastructure. Energy is a significant problem both to the consumers and all the business owners in the state. There's an extensive set of recommendations and advice. We suggest that because Rhode Island is paying some of the highest fees in the nation for energy, this is something that we should look at short-term, mid-range term, and long-term. And we should also look at what the cost impact is, not just use of alternative energies, but what's it going to cost at the end of the day. 7, and I'm almost done, coordination of state and municipal resources. Commerce Corporation has done an awful lot to coordinate some of these, and some of this is with regards to regulations and compliance with regulations. We need to do more. As Lenny Ladaro mentioned this morning, we're a small state, but we act like we're Texas. We're a small state. We're a city state, but we do have 39 cities and towns. The differences between all the regulations and all the programs that are available become a myriad for anybody that tries to do business here. You know, and frankly, if you go to one of the large cities in Texas with millions of people as residents and in the population, you'll find there's one set of regulations. In this little city state, we have 39 sets of requirements, regulations, rules, performance reviews. It becomes untenable in order to do business. Finally, state agency customer performance review. Let's just say it real simple. Survey monkey. All of us as business owners depend upon what our customers think about how we perform our service, provide our product or services to our customers. We know what the problems are. When are they going to be fixed? Why don't we require or why don't we encourage state agencies to ask their customers, us, the taxpayers, how we think they're doing, and ask them for constructive criticism as to what can be done. It's not a place just to gripe your complaints. It's a matter of when the complaints go down, you know that we're doing something to increase performance. And frankly, if we're required to do it, state government should be required to do it as well. Once again, I thank everybody for coming. I thank the distinguished panel for being here. And as Deborah said, Mark, only give them the 8 they can do this year. So our group is counting on 8 of these being done this year. You have a list of 16. We're only asking for 8. That's 50-50. Thank you very much.
Just out of curiosity, you were 6 minutes, 53 seconds speaking.
I was under last year by 2.
Yeah, that's true. Our second committee report is Miriam Ross and Main Street issues. Miriam.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Great committee work this morning, and I thank you all. You all have a written report from me, anon, as they say. Main Street, just in case you are all wondering what we're really talking about here, focuses on local initiatives to revitalize Rhode Island's main streets. And Main Street is really where our population is going. People want to live, eat, work, and play all within the same area, and Main Street is where it's happening. And so we have great opportunities in Rhode Island, and we have great main streets. And the first issue of concern, and that we've raised this in the past, that we would like to see action on, is to get support and leadership for our main streets, for our cities and towns, to implement the programs that they need to grow the economies and create jobs and increase their tax revenues. Specifically, we're looking for leadership from the Commerce Department with dedicated staff to help our merchant associations, our city planners, and bring them together with some top-down leadership to coordinate and provide vision and bring people together. We're looking at alternatives so that we can look at alternatives to repurpose our buildings. We've got lots of vacancies and storefronts we want to repurpose. We need alternatives and incentives. And we also want to, through that leadership, we have bottom-up, if you will, merchants, business owners, chambers, to provide that support and innovation. Second issue of big concern goes to or around publicly funded construction projects, road closures, and business interruptions. We know that publicly funded municipal construction projects on publicly owned land have great potential to produce long-term economic benefits to the surrounding area. However, in the short term, these projects also have negative impacts on our retail stores and our main streets, harming those businesses and the surrounding communities. Much of that harm comes from disruption in traffic patterns and available parking. And what we see that happens, and one of the negative impacts, is that your population and customers go away because they can't get to the store, they can't get to the business. And we actually see changes in patterns of people in terms of what they do. So how do we handle this problem? It's called construction mitigation services. And essentially what this is making sure that we have communication and systems in place so that we know what's going on and we can mitigate the negative impacts of these types of projects which happen on a regular basis. Any of you, if you've lived in Providence, I know this summer, you endure all of these issues with altered traffic patterns and construction. It is our recommendation that the state require on any public construction project that the RFP require a communication plan, that the RFP require that there be a conversation and plan set up between the construction company, the city, and the business owners so that we can mitigate the impact. The next recommendation Main Street discussed, which is a little bit off of Main Street, I suppose, but last year I had the opportunity to talk about craft brewery. This year I was given the opportunity per our committee to discuss marijuana. What can I say? There are two issues or two subjects of concern. One is marijuana in the workplace, and the other has to do with the burgeoning emergence of a recreational marijuana industry in this state. Let's first talk about our first recommendation has to do with marijuana in the workplace. Rhode Island does have a law on the books with respect to medical marijuana, and it does have a provision having to do with what you can and can't do, as it were, as an employer. Unfortunately, the law lacks specificity in terms of what an employer, in fact, can do or not do. It doesn't, from a legal perspective, as a lawyer, we're not defining what discrimination means. So our recommendation is to provide guidance to our employers on two fronts. One is that it would not be a violation of existing Rhode Island law to prohibit the use of marijuana on the job in safety-sensitive positions. And likewise, and with respect to federal employers in Rhode Island, that their requirement on mandatory drug testing and absolute prohibition of marijuana use would also not be a violation of the Rhode Island Act. There are other regulations obviously impacting many other things with respect to marijuana, but in terms of what impacts the small business owner, if you will, and things of import, we felt that this was important step to take as we move forward with our legislation generally in marijuana. Last but not least, with respect to the burgeoning new biggest business opportunity, which is recreational marijuana, and the possibility that we may pass legislation in the near future that would legalize recreational marijuana in the state of Rhode Island, it would be the thought and request of the small business community that we have a seat at the table, because there are many issues in terms of the structuring of that industry that will impact the small business owner, as well as be opportunities within our community, specifically supply chain management and distribution. All of those are big business opportunities for our small businesses, and we'd like a seat at the table. Thank you.
Our next committee report is going to be John Gregory and Workforce Development. I just want to take a point of personal privilege here on the issue of construction. A lot of times people come to the SBA and ask for disaster loans. Just so that you all are aware of it, it's not an eligible practice if there's a construction happening in a particular area where the SBA can come in and provide disaster assistance funding to businesses who are affected by construction. So I know a lot of times people say, well, why can't SBA help? We're prohibited by law from doing that. So just FYI, as you look at that particular issue, and I think it's impacted Warwick and it's impacted, I believe, Providence and Woonsocket, and those issues did come up a couple of times, and I just wanted you to be aware of that. John.
One of the things about following both Mark and Miriam with their passion, they go on and on. So Mark just told me, Mark just told me I had to get back on track. So let me start my remarks with, in conclusion, Workforce Development, as always, was an interesting group. We appreciate the opportunity to have representatives from the business community there, from the education community. This year we even had some representatives from the labor community, which was a first for us, and we appreciated having them there and their input. The overall feeling was that the Governor's Workforce Board's plan, biennial plan that was just recently passed, has come a long way in helping us as it relates to workforce development. We still recognize that there's challenges out there. We still hear about all the jobs that are available and all the people we don't have to fill them. But we were pleased to see that the progress that the General Assembly and the administration has made in the last couple of years, we're starting to address that. And if you have the opportunity to read the Governor's Workforce Biennial Plan, it's like the old Prego commercial. If you look long enough, you'll see that it's in there. So we do encourage you to go to the Governor's Workforce Board site and take a look at that. We also decided, and this is something that we've talked about for years as well, is that the biggest problem that we have these great programs that nobody knows about. There's not a direct way of marketing it. My colleagues in the Chambers of Commerce and the other trade associations, we do the best we can to get the information out there, but not everybody belongs to a trade association or a Chamber of Commerce. So how do we get the word out there? And one of the recommendations that we have is that any state agency or local agency, for that matter, that has contact with business at least once a year should say, by the way, do you know about these great plans that are available for workforce development? Because it always amazes us in our group that a lot of folks don't. They say, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So that was one of the things, and also maybe for the potential of having a line item in the budget that would allow for marketing of the great programs, because we all know we want this well-trained workforce. That was kind of discussed this morning. We were talking now, we should be talking to third and fourth graders who eventually become the welders at Electric Bolt. At the time that we should be talking to them is now, which came to our second recommendation, is to continue to make sure that we're trying to find a way to work into the curriculum. And my good friend Jada maybe always tells me, it's never any more about soft skills. We're always talking about essential skills. that are needed in the workplace. And we should start putting that into the curriculum now of our schools. All, in addition to working in teams and so on and so forth, it also came up again. It's sort of like Miriam was talking about. We have some new challenges coming up. What happens, again, if in fact we legalize marijuana? What does it mean to you as a responsibility of an employer or an employee or any other substance, and background checks from an employee? So anything we can do to help our future workforce, the earlier that we can start, career awareness is another thing. Why should we wait until we get into traditional high school job fairs? We should have people coming into the schools, and we do that in a lot of schools now, but we should, I don't want to say should be mandated. But the other thing that came up, which is interesting, which kind of does tie into what Mark Dion was talking about, is that there's a feeling that we talked about entrepreneurial and critical thinking in schools, and that Rhode Island needs to step up to the plate financially and help those who help entrepreneurs in particular. As been mentioned, Mark mentioned, it was mentioned earlier this morning, that we leave a lot of money on the table because we don't put enough money on the table. Last I checked, we're still 50th in the way that we fund our small businesses, and while that's appreciated, if we look on the return on investment, if we put more money into small business, in the long term we'll have the great investments. So those are the three major recommendations from our committee, and we do, again, as everyone says, this is the 10th year that a lot of us have been doing this, and we appreciate the fact that a lot of you keep coming back, and that we get a lot of new folks in the room, so thank you so much.
That's 4 minutes, John. That was great. Got us back on time. We're now going to go to healthcare, and Ralph Coppola and I should have mentioned in workforce development, the vice chair, the co-chair of that is Representative Marianne Shawcroft-Smith, who has done a tremendous amount of work. She served in the House a few years ago and has done a lot of work on workforce development. Ralph is the chair of the Healthcare Committee. He's assisted by Melissa Travis and by Steve Boyle from the Cranston Chamber of Commerce. Can you pass these out? Pass these down?
Good afternoon, everyone. Lieutenant Governor McKee, Secretary Gorbea, Treasurer Magaziner, Chairman DaPonte, and I'm losing my train. Speaker Mattiello. Just one of those brain things going on. Yeah. Yeah, the bright lights are getting to me, Mark. It's all the technology. It's all the waves that are going at me, I guess, that they talk about these days. On behalf of the Committee of Healthcare, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. Especially thank you for your tremendous progress you have made in improving the business climate in the state of Rhode Island. We're moving in a very, very positive direction, and it's encouraging to see that happening. I also want to thank all the other elected officials that have come here today, as well as everybody in the business community that took the time out of their schedules to be here also. I really want to thank the committee that worked on this. Obviously, Melissa Travis and Steve Boyle, who were the co-chairs of the committee, Al Charbonneau, Jeff Grove, who couldn't be here today, Jamie Moran, and Erin Donovan Boyle. They really did a tremendous job in putting together a program that we think is going to be very, very, very good for the state. So we need to continue the progress that's been made, and our group agrees that we need to have a cost-effective, high-quality, innovative healthcare system that is critical to the success of the economic development of the state of Rhode Island. And we'll get into some of the numbers in a minute, which is actually in the report that we did on the SurveyMonkey report. It's also an important factor in recruiting and training retaining new and strengthening existing small businesses, which are vital for the business climate. Prior to our meeting today, we sent out a survey to the business community, and we received 75 responses to that survey. Each of you have a copy of that survey in your packet, and there's also a copy that I've given to the DS. Pretty much, I mean, at times it was like, okay, well, the questions were kind of loaded in one direction, but the questions are reality, and the reality is between 2006 and 2015, healthcare costs in the state of Rhode Island have increased from 16.7% to 21.9% of the median income of the state. That is a 31% increase. I mean, to further take that along, which was not in the survey, ultimately, when you look at what happened over time, any of the increases in salary that the workforce received in this state, I think over the past 10 years, between healthcare costs and basic necessity costs, something like 92% of that went to just healthcare and necessities. So that gave 8% to disposable income in the past 10 years. That's certainly not an economic driver by any stretch of the imagination. So getting back to the original thing, of the respondents, 80% of the respondents believe that this is impacting economic development and upward mobility in the state of Rhode Island. So it's pretty, the numbers pretty well tell it all on that one. 50% of the respondents would be willing to drive further to a hospital to reduce systems in the cost of the system by $30 million, and that would be by eliminating the 200 excess beds that we have in the state right now. 84% are in favor of revising the behavioral health system, which per employee is the highest level in the nation, by encouraging patient services versus outpatient services and performance-based pharmaceutical practices. 80% would support requiring an economic impact study for all proposed healthcare legislation and regulation. And I think that was a big that came up this morning in the panel discussion. Let's look at the economic impact of what we do and see how that's going to affect the business climate, positive or negative. And 76% support leadership being more proactive in supporting a common sense solution to control the cost of health care. So in our group, we identified 3 areas that need to be addressed. Number 1 is determine a statewide plan of action to control health care costs. Number 2 is strengthening the statewide certificate of need practices. You know, it always kind of amazed me. It's like we have radiology centers throughout the state, and it's like, I mean, the best practice would be to have one at every hospital that everybody would go to, and that would be the extent of it. So they're there 24 hours for obviously the patients, but they're also there for the consumers if they have to just go in for that treatment. And the last is identify and target premium cost drivers in the system. So those are the 3 things that we would like to focus on. So regardless of the fate of the ACA, and we're all worried about what's going to happen, obviously, we know changes are coming. We don't know what they are. We don't know what the income's going to be. We get all these questions that would have to be answered. We have to, just move forward. It's time for Rhode Island to move forward. We need to establish our own plan for a cost-effective, high-quality, innovative healthcare system. You know, we also have to make sure that that we keep the Rhode Islanders that are currently have health care, which I think is in the 92 or 94% range. We need to keep them insured also, because a healthy workforce and a healthy state is an important factor. With health care moving from the second highest expense for the state, for small businesses in the state, to possibly the largest expense for many, the Rhode Island business community is asking for your support as we come together for a drive of a more affordable system. Unlike the ACA, which was designed for access to health care coverage, the health community will be targeting the cost drivers. The business community will be targeting the cost drivers of health care. We have identified the areas of inefficiency and ways of streamlining the Rhode Island healthcare system to reduce spending. We ask for your support as a business community organizes to address these cost drivers of healthcare. And, you know, it's funny because Dr. Ladaro said something that I thought was very profound this morning. Basically, the state of Rhode Island has to reinvent itself in a positive way. You know, if we go back to the 1800s, turn of the last century, 2 centuries ago, I believe Rhode Island was probably the most industrious, and I think it was one of the wealthiest states in the nation. And it seems like in a 100-year, a little over 100-year span, we've gone from the top to the bottom, which sounds like the Red Sox, but that's another story. Yeah, they came back in 1 year. So I guess, next year we're going to be number 1. So that's good. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. I want to again thank you for all being here today and for your leadership in our drive to make Rhode Island the state where business owners want to establish and grow their business and raise their family. Thank you all.
3 years ago, we had the opportunity to establish the Emerging Markets Committee to deal with a lot of different issues, and I'd like to invite up Oscar Mejias and Sandra Cano to present the report for emerging markets.
Thank you. Thank you to honorable officer for being here and give us the opportunity and hear our voice. Thank you all of you for your participation. Sorry. Thank you the people who participate in the emerging market group. It was very intense, very effective, and very productive. So thank you very much. The emerging market group includes all the minorities. We don't want to be called more minorities. We are emerging groups that we are growing very fast in this. In this economy. So we close the conclusion in 4 points. The first one is procurement and contracting. We are aware of the advancement and the improvement in the process, but there are a lot of things to do. So we come with a conclusion about allocate funds for organizations that provide technical assistance programs to ensure that the information for procurement and contracting reach the emerging markets, including funds for targeted marketing and promotion to motivate the small business owner to participate with the state. So it's necessary to allocate funding to do that promotion. Our second point is the using technology, the cultural competence. It's a big issue that the small business owners are facing when we go to some state agencies or so, even in the city levels. So we want to ask to the state a bigger commitment for the leadership in implement the necessary steps to change the culture and improve the customer service. Remember, it's not just about the language, it's about the customer service, it's about how we treat the minority business owners who comes to looking for help, so looking for advice, looking for technical assistance. We suggest that improve the services, including cultural sensitivity training, including evaluation, maybe testing the process using, for example, secret shop, secret customers methodology to evaluate how is the advance in this area, and also utilize the language, bank, and leverage existing lean training.
Thank you, Oscar. Buenas tardes. My name is Sandra Cano. I'm the co-chair with Oscar, and I just want to say thank you so much for being here today. We will continue with the recommendations, and I think the one that has been coming through the last years again and again is the access to capital for small businesses. And I think that most of the things that we have said here also have come from other groups, which is great to see that there is a common problem, not only from the emerging markets, but also for all the small businesses around the state. So the recommendation that we have for this access to capital issue is marketing and promotion of current financial options for businesses to the emerging markets, right? Partnering with business service organizations that work with the small business owners, and coordinating and funding services for the small businesses, such as financial literacy, technical assistance programs. That is already on existence, but what we're trying to do is making sure that the emerging markets small business owners, that includes veterans and disabled people, LGBT, they do know that these programs do exist. So we want to make sure that we advocate for that. The other issue that came over and over through the years was the delayed payments to subcontractors with the state. So that is not something that is new. You have heard that in the past. And the recommendation that we have is make sure that we enforce the existing regulations for payments to vendors and subcontractors. Not only the enforcement, but make sure we have accountability with that enforcement and imposing the penalties to vendors for noncompliance. That needs to happen. I mean, we have the regulations. We just need to make sure that we enforce those regulations. And with that, have accountability for these small businesses to get the payments on time. I want to conclude by saying that this committee is been pretty proactive, and we're growing. We have a diverse state with change of demographics, and that is not something that is new to us. But it is great that we're coming together. That is the beginning, right? Keeping together is a progress, but working together is what is going to make us successful here in the state of Rhode Island. So I welcome all of you to continue being informed about emerging markets, and welcome you to work with us throughout the year, not only at this moment, but throughout the year, to ensuring that our elected officials are informed and to continue that communication that needs to be open. So thank you so much, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
And we will be paring all of these recommendations down, sending them out to all of the people who have attended here today, and certainly to the elected leadership. We will follow up as we have in the past, and we thank the Speaker with Lynn Urbani, who is sitting over here to the left, and with Marie Ganem, who is sitting in the audience. And I know that it's important for them to get all of the information that's been discussed today. Next is the Regulations Committee. The honorable gentleman from the town of North Smithfield, the new town administrator in North Smithfield, Mr. Gary Zofsky, and his committee includes Ron Caniglia from Stan Corporation and Leslie Tato from Hope Global.
Thank you, Mark. I really like the name Gary. It's just simple, right? But it is important for me to say thank you as I start here. There are so many people that take part in this whole regulatory discussion, not just here at the summit each year, but throughout the year. Ron and Leslie, the vice chairs of our committee, people like Bob Baldwin, John Simmons, and everyone at RIPEC, the Rhode Island Business Coalition that offers so much insight to what we accomplish and try to drive toward. And just Lynn and Marie, in the State House, the folks that have believed in the issues that we have sought to change. The Secretary of State and the Speaker certainly have helped us to move these things forward. And while I guess John starts with a joke, and it's always best to do that, but I can't. In the past week, I've learned that there are 3 daycare facilities and 1 restaurant, small businesses where people have just said, I'm done, can't do it anymore. And that's the note that I think we need to hear again and again, unfortunately, until we get to the point that we've sufficiently changed the atmosphere that Professor Ladaro said this morning needs to be done in with an approach of crisis. That because in so many levels, that is what it is. We have 5 areas of interest. We can't come down to 3 issues. 5 areas of interest that we will speak to. We want to offer and encourage support for the Office of Regulatory Reform. This work is hard. In any other measure of things that I've done, I think the 8 or 9 years that I've put in here, we have some good things to point to, but by any other measure, I'd be judged a catastrophic failure for failing to get more done. And I'm not saying that in defeat. I just offer it in terms of recognizing that this is hard work. And we need the Office of Regulatory Reform to be there doing it and helping us to make further progress. The new Administrative Procedures Act that was passed last year, thankfully to the folks in the State House, is a great new tool that will help us to get more of this work done. And it's a great example of what would not have happened, in our opinion, if it were not for the diligence at the Office of Regulatory Reform. We would encourage that the Office of Regulatory Reform be allowed to establish a dashboard of their activity, such that people at any time can be, whether you're a legislator, an elected official, or a business person or a resident, be able to understand what is happening at ORR and hopefully gain confidence that the process is moving forward. The next issue seems to be in a lot of people's minds. I don't know what that means, but marijuana. Although we have some people that can't even spell it. Right, Leslie? Maybe that's a good thing. What our committee says is think it through, please. It is an extremely complicated issue for the business community. The potential impacts to labor relations, to hazard control, to banking matters, real estate matters, it's just so complicated and has the potential to be just a beast in the small business community that we want to work with you to understand it and to help draw conclusions that make sense for both government and for business. It should be no surprise that licensing and permitting continues to be a concern for the small business community. We'll continue to advocate for the electronic building permit system that we began our advocacy on 6 years ago. It is an example I hope you will be proud of in terms of what the state can do with computers. Not every project that gets taken on is a disaster. As a local official now, I am happy to say that we're one of the 10 communities that did roll out the permitting system, and the feedback that I'm getting from our permit officials is that they love it. They were concerned that it might be difficult for them to use. Once they got familiar with it, they're all in. So it works. And what we would ask for you is to get set a goal for rollout throughout the other 29 cities and towns to make that all happen. It's a good program. It's a success story for the state of Rhode Island. We encourage that we continue to use lean management to expedite processes in every entity, and Mark already spoke to that. It works. It can give us more and more, and it's the only way for our systems. It's one of the critical ways for our systems to be able to become more friendly to the business community. We need to continue to force agencies to collaborate, to share data, to reduce the repetitive submissions. And with that in mind, we're also thinking that it would be beneficial to both the agencies as well as the different businesses that have to file so many applications in a year, to give them, like a credit card company gives you the opportunity to be able to set when you get your statements and what time periods you have for start and end of your billing period, so that we smooth the regulatory burden out for businesses and help them enter things one time as opposed to having to do the same things again and again and again. And then, interestingly enough, the community is asking for adequate enforcement that helps to level the playing field and protect our resources at the same time. So adequate enforcement of clear, predictable, and reliable regulations is still something that, since Leslie said it back when she was at ORR, we maintain as a secret to success for the state of Rhode Island. We wouldn't be who we are without making comment about education and labor management issues. We continue we ask you to continue to drive the career tech education system in Rhode Island to a place where one entity manages it with the proper focus that it deserves. Right now we have a fractured system, and I wish the governor was here to hear this, because while she has taken some great initiatives in new programs and getting business involvement, it continues to be in separate silos that get managed by folks who can't concentrate on it. And we need career tech education to be a driver of opportunity for many of our young people who have a hard time finding a place in education that embraces them and attracts them in. We think that get good education is the best path to a job and a life that is productive and I'll offer void of the legal system. It was interesting, Speaker, in your debate at the end of last session that, your advocacy for our change in the career tech programs bumped into, the Senate side with issues related to the judicial system. And we'd offer that, again, educate people. Let's keep them out of the judicial system to the point that, it works. The apprenticeship is still an issue for Rhode Island. It does not help that we put barriers to employment in place by requiring that there have to be 2, 3, 4, 5 journeymen before a small business can hire another apprentice. We understand the balance that some folks want and the control that some folks want, but if we fail to realize what kind of an impediment to growth or of job opportunity and business opportunity, it really is, I'm beside myself to try to find the right words that just say we're leaning on an architecture of the past and we need to embrace the future. Additional labor management dictates from government will not help us grow or sustain our opportunity. Would ask that you do not mandate predictive scheduling or sick time pay. We know the value of our employees, whether we're in the public sector now or those in the private sector. We know that we have to take care of our employees. We don't need government to remind us that it should be done in a particular way. We want to do it in a way that works for our businesses and for our employees. Trust business to do business and run business instead of trying to mandate it in so many ways. And with that, let's go to holiday flexibility that we've talked about in the past. The Northeast has this rigid requirement that manages, that tells us how to handle holidays, that we need to get away from and give flexibility. Businesses will allow encourage their people to enjoy holidays. They don't need to be mandated to do it in the way that we do it with overtime pay requirements and with permit requirements as they exist in the state today. And finally, in that category, independent contracting requires us, and by us I mean business and legislative and government leaders, to create a level, to work together to identify the way that we create a level playing field while not interfering with the millennial gig economy, that circumstance is developing where people don't necessarily work for the same company every day, especially in the electronics world. They work on different gigs. That they'll be in for a few months and go on to another one, and some of them do very, very well, and they're interesting, exciting environments that we don't want to interfere with. But at the same time, we have to stop the roofer who's coming in from wherever with no licenses, no insurance, and limited concern for our rules and just doing what they do. And finally, energy. It's been mentioned before, cost and reliability of energy is a challenge that New England faces in a grand way. Within 3 to 5 years, 1/3 of New England's generating capacity is scheduled to close. We generate something on the order of close to 40 gigawatts of power in New England. 13 gigawatts is on the table under the current rules to close for various reasons, whether it's aging out or fuel-related, whatever the case might be. That is an extreme concern at this time of the year that we need to be attentive to. We need to have defensive measures, as we always do in government. But we also need to have offensive measures to be able to make sure that we satisfy the future needs that will keep us warm, for one thing. And that's not just business. We're talking about residences being able to heat their homes, because there may be gas coming into them that's mandated. But if there's no electricity, that heating system doesn't run. And we are, again, approaching a circumstance where further plant closures will cause a condition where we would not be able to endure a polar vortex condition like we had just 2 or 3 years ago. It is a very real condition for the next few years that we need to, again, develop an offensive attitude towards to get ourselves to where we need to be. With that, we say thank you for listening, and we work on.
And last but not least, an issue that's near and dear to everybody's heart. I know the Speaker and the Chairman of this committee have had many hours of discussions about how we improve the tax and budget climate here in Rhode Island. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Cap Willie, the Chairman of the Tax and Budget Committee.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Hello. Yes. Yes.
I was getting the grand tour.
Well, reporting from the Tax and Budget Committee, we had a lively discussion as usual, although we were missing one of our usual combatants, but we'll wait for her to come up next year. First of all, I wanted to go acknowledge the past recommendations that came out of the summit just out of the Tax and Budget Committee over the past few years. It's a pretty impressive list. It included recommendations to create the Department of Revenue, to do pension reform, the property tax cap, S50, 3050, corporate tax reform, estate tax reform, individual personal income tax reform, the repeal of the franchise tax, decreasing or increasing the direct expensing provisions to the federal limits, removing the state tax on utilities, reducing the minimum tax to $400, and providing some relief for retirement income. We've also held the line on broad-based taxes for most of the past 10 years, and we've held back efforts to impose binding arbitration. These are all important actions that got their start out of this summit. And what it tells me is that these people up here are listening and responding. And we want to make sure that we do not do any backpedaling on these gains. Last year, I sat up here and told you that the most important issue that was getting a lot of attention was getting the letter of good standing out of the Division of Taxation. We got a lot of press on it. The summit was on a Friday. The next week, I received a call from the people at the Division of Taxation saying, what's the problem? And they met with Mark Hayward and Bob Mancini and myself. To their credit, they took the criticism constructively and decided they had to fix it. They started a lean process, which they invited us to participate in. And what they discovered, also Liz Tanner from Commerce was part of that lean process. What they discovered in processing a letter of good standing was it took 161 touches by people within the Department of Division of Taxation, and it took an average of 90 days. They couldn't believe it themselves. They set up a procedure to go through 3 steps to fix it. They've gotten through 2 of those steps. At the end of the day, they're going to get down to 16 touches and, for the most part, have a limit of 7 days. The final solution includes the implementation of a new computer system, which I've been assured will be implemented much better than the DHS and the DMV. The critical point is that your voices were heard and listened to, and action were taken. Last year, I presented you with a Star Wars labor sword. I have another thing that I think you may need at this point, and this is a stress ball that you can press, and it lights up when you're really upset. In the tax and budget session today, I would remark that Nina Savage, the tax administrator, actively participated in our discussions, and she gave us an update on where the letter of good standing bill, our process is going, and she promises within the first half of this year it will be fixed, and we all look forward to that we are going to keep her feet to the fire on that and follow up with her. Out of this year's session, we looked at the tax foundation's rating systems, which are frustrating and frustrating for all the people involved in government and in business, which rates us at the bottom of the barrel in many cases. When we break down their system, there are two areas that are really hurting us. The first one is unemployment tax. We're 50 out of 50. And it's not right to sit in the General Assembly and say, well, we're 50 out of 50, we can't have any more bad news. No, we got to fix the situation. It's the one area that will move the needle, but it's going to take a serious review and analysis of what's working and not working within the unemployment system area. And our recommendation is going to be to do a comprehensive study and analysis, look at what other states are doing, look at what our stakeholders are dealing with. There's a number of different areas in there, but the one thing we have to address is the seasonal employees, and we have to come up with creative. Seasonal employees would include the landscapers that work in the summer, and plus the hospitality industry, plus the construction industry. These are all critical industries to our economy. But we got to look at how they're affected by this unemployment. They're getting hammered at the highest rates. So there's some ideas that have been floated. I think we need to invite the stakeholders in on this decision making. A lot of states don't put the seasonal worker into the unemployment system because they know they're always going to be working 3 or 4 months and then not working. Do we put them in at a lower benefit rate? Do we do an incentive to get off of unemployment? Do we pay more in the beginning of a collection period and reduce that over time? I think we need creative solutions, and it's going to take other states are dealing with it. We got to see what other states are doing. The second issue is property taxes. We're ranked 44th in the property tax level. We did implement the property tax cap. That has helped, but we have a lot of areas of concern there. Some of the items we identified is that the inequity of the taxing of businesses versus residential properties. Many of the urban core communities have the ability to have a tiered tax system where they can tax residential, like Providence will tax residents at $18 a thousand. They'll tax business real estate at $36.70. They'll tax commercial tangible property at $55.80, and they'll tax vehicles at $60 per thousand. The businesses don't vote in those communities, so they're easy targets. Believe it or not, Providence is not the biggest offender. Smithfield taxes residents at $16.73 and tangibles at $60.74. We should standardize the way that they're taxing in municipalities, and we should try to eliminate the taxes on business tangible property. It puts our Rhode Island in a competitive disadvantage. In the last campaign, there was much discussion about the unfairness of the motor vehicle tax system. The Speaker has vowed to eliminate the system over 5 years. The price tag on that is pretty high, $218 million, and there's huge variances in the assessment rates of the various communities. And there's this question of, if we make these communities whole, are we favoring one over the other? I would recommend that we look at how Massachusetts taxes vehicles. They tax one rate. If a car is taxed as a car in Boston and Springfield, the same amount in each location, so you're not paying more to one city or town than the other. And then deal with making whole or weaning off the communities like Providence and North Providence and the urban core over a period of time, and then deal with the overall tax. Maybe it'll come down. If you use an average, it might be $25 a thousand. And then we can see whether that makes sense. We are concerned about the unfairness that might be between communities, so we'd ask you to look at that. One other suggestion. I know last year we passed tolling, and we were looking for a rebate or some relief for the local truckers. perhaps the property tax exemption at the local levels for trucks that are located here might be an option that wouldn't run into constitutional issues and might be a way to provide some relief. The other issue is the estate taxes. We encourage you to continue to increase the exemption on estate taxes. It is a problem with people leaving, despite what some of the statistics are. I know in each one of our CPA offices we do that every year. We did get the $1.5 million exemption, and we did get the remove the cliff. The problem is, and that helped a lot, the problem is other states have not stood still. There's 14 states that assess an estate tax now. We are becoming an outlier, and we are number 4 in the lowest exemption at the 1.5, and we will drop to number 3 when D.C. moves their exemption up to $2 million next year. This is a long-term problem. I would hope you'd be able to make some progress on it. One of the things to consider, including the exemption, would be to make an interim exemption for small businesses and family farms and exempt them if they stay in the state for 5 years or stay as a small business. That would send a good message that we're trying to help businesses. Another, in the plenary session this morning, I was pleased that one of the questions was whether we should have an economic impact statement for all proposed legislation, and I've been proposing that for a number of years. In the package that we'll send out, we do have a one-page questionnaire that starts that process. Basically, does this job increase jobs or lose jobs? Does it increase regulation or lose regulations? Does it cost more to the taxpayer? Does it cost more to the employee? Simple process, but each bill should at least address that if you're going to deal with the economy. We look forward to working with you all this next session, and hopefully it will be productive for all of us. Thank you.
You always tell tax and budget's real exciting topics. There's certainly a lot of issues. This really is an opportunity for the committee chairs to provide to our leadership their opinions and the discussions, and we will follow up, as I said before, and provide everybody with a report. At this time, we'd like to take the opportunity to invite our participants to either give you comments. I realize, Governor, you weren't here for most of the, other than CAP. Gary actually was trying to get your attention as you were walking around. But we will provide you the information. But ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Governor of the State of Rhode Island, the Honorable Gina Raimondo.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you. I think I'll get good use out of this. The demands of the job, I think it'll be actually lit up a lot. Anyway, it's great to be here. It's wonderful to be here. I see many, many members of the General Assembly here. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Speaker and Senator DaPonte, for being here, Treasurer, Secretary of State, Lieutenant Governor. It's a great thing when we all can get together to reaffirm our commitment to Rhode Island and show that we can listen to one another and we can make progress by tackling some of these issues. I also want to thank President Machtley for hosting us. I have to say I was amazed by my tour. I was walking around for a while. It's unbelievable what you've done here. I have a special place in my heart for Bryant because my mother went to Bryant some years ago. We won't say how many. And, you know, it was Little Bryant College at the time. And look at what it is now. Something that is a globally recognized university. And this building in particular was recognized as, I think, one of the most innovative buildings in the world. So congratulations for all you've done, and thank you for what you do. So, Cap, I couldn't agree with you more when you say that this is an important venue and that we are listening. I do want to offer my most sincere gratitude for every single one of you for staying engaged. You know, it's easy to give up, but you don't. You come back every year, you give us your best ideas, and we do our best to enact them. So last year when I came, I got an earful about the Certificate of Good Standing. And you know what? It was really good to hear that, because we can't fix it until we know. And so I went back to the team and we got to work. And between last year and this year, we cut the time in half, actually more than in half. And you played an incredibly important role in that. We did a lean process. We cut out, I think, 50 steps, as Cap was saying. And there's more to do. You know, we've gone from over 60 days average to under 30 days average. It's actually only about a week if you have all your paperwork in place. And I hope to come back next year and tell you it's online, and it's, you know, down to a few days. So real progress. We're doing our part. I see Rob Hull back there. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Nina. And thank you guys for putting that on our radar. Second thing I heard last year was, hey, Governor, you need to do a better job with the way you do your MBE process. That was one of your top recommendations last year from one of your groups. And so we're doing that. You were right. You were exactly right. We had a very difficult process, and as a result, the results weren't where they needed to be. You know, we have a state law that says 10% of contracting should go to minority, women, and disabled-owned businesses. And for years, we've been at 6%. Not okay, not acceptable. So yesterday, I announced that we're going to get to 12%. We're going to double where we are, and we're going to do better than what's legislatively required. And we're going to do that by taking some of the steps that you guys have recommended. Actually, we've already taken some of the steps. Making it easier to be certified as an MBE. It was way too complicated. You pointed that out to us. We fixed it, and we're going to fix it even more. Also, making sure that when you submit your first bid, the MBE component is there. It's not an afterthought. So again, I want to thank you. Cheryl is here, and Sabina Matos, I saw somewhere, is here. So thank you guys, and all of you in the community, thank you for bringing that to our attention. We've eliminated, working with the Assembly, the commercial sales tax on energy use. It's money in the pocket of every single small business, an idea that came out of this group. I agree with Cap, we need to do more on the unemployment insurance tax. It's a direct tax. However, I am pleased to say that working collaboratively with the General Assembly last year, we did put through a $30 million unemployment insurance tax cut, which is going to affect every small business. You're going to see it starting this week. It went into effect in the new year. So there is some relief. It's not everything we need, but it's $30 million that are going to go into the pockets of every business starting this year. And I think I can speak. You know, I've been very fortunate to have a House and a Senate leadership who've worked collaboratively on both of those tax initiatives so we could get them done. I have to say, in general, you look around the country right now, there's a lot of gridlock in state houses. And there's a little gridlock in Washington, but not here. We might not agree on everything, but we've been able to get things done. We've cut the corporate minimum tax. We've cut the unemployment insurance tax. We've cut the commercial sales tax on energy consumption. We've invested in job training. We've set up apprenticeship programs. We've improved people's ability to get a good career in technical education in high school. And I want to publicly thank Speaker Mattiello, Senate President, and the leadership in the Senate for being good partners, because the people that benefit when we work together are the people of Rhode Island. Whole lot more work to do, but some excellent progress. I want to say one more thing quickly, and it harkens back to the place where we are, which is this innovation center. In order for Rhode Island to really thrive, we need more high-wage jobs. We need economic growth. And some of that comes from what we're talking about, creating a better business environment. Fewer regulations, lower business taxes, people want to be here. But some of that, a lot of it, also comes from investing in skills. Every single business person I talk to, from the very biggest to the very smallest, identifies for me that their biggest problem is not being able to find the skilled labor force that they need on their timeline at the price they can afford. So we're making some progress. We have computer science being taught in every school in Rhode Island. something only, we were first in the nation around that. We're improving CCRI, Rhode Island College and URI. We're making it easier and less expensive to get a college degree. Real Jobs Rhode Island, thank you to every one of you who's helped us to make that great. But while we're cutting taxes, which is important to do, and I do look forward to working with the Assembly to cut the car tax and make it more fair, we can't keep our eye off investing in growth. Because the hottest, fastest growing economies in America today, including our neighbor just to the north, are the ones that have invested in innovation, job training, and skills. And that's public schools, that's our universities, that's apprenticeship programs, that's CTE programs. And so my priorities are the same as yours in many ways. Keep the taxes low, keep the regulations where they need to be, make government work, make it easy to interface with us, but let's not lose sight of the fact that at the end of the day, the thing that's going to drive Rhode Island is economic growth, high-scale, high-wage jobs, and my job is to make sure the Rhode Islanders get those jobs. We brought in General Electric, we brought in Johnson & Johnson, we brought in Cambridge Innovation Center. These are some of the best companies in the world, and they've said they want to be in Rhode Island. Now let's make sure Rhode Islanders get those jobs because they have the skills that those companies need. So I'm excited to continue to work with you. I am grateful for your continued commitment to Rhode Island. And Happy New Year, and let's get something done.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know if you want to speak from your seat or if you want to come to the podium. It's totally up to you. But I want to thank you publicly for your encouragement to all the members of the House to attend here and to communicate with us. I think that really has provided that kind of dialogue that we need to respond to all of the recommendations that have been made today, and we will get it to you and we will work with Lynn. But Mr. Speaker, since most of these are legislative-related actions, we'd like to take this opportunity to give you an opportunity to respond to the comments that were made and to give some remarks.
Thank you, Mark. I want to thank the Governor and everybody on this panel with me. We've all worked collaboratively. I had the honor and the pleasure to work with each and every one of them on things that matter to Rhode Island. So I will say that our government that is very functional and working as hard as it can on your behalf. I just met with the Secretary of State yesterday. I met with the Treasurer, the General Treasurer, shortly before that. And, I mean, they have wonderful ideas, ambitious ideas for the session. Worked with the Lieutenant Governor, the Senate, and DaPonte. We're sharing ideas up here, and we're pretty much on the same page. And the Governor has been very dynamic and hard-working in the city hall. So I feel fortunate to have great partners in government and great colleagues in the House. I'm going to mention some of them that here in a few minutes, but we have dedicated public servants that are all working together. On behalf of the House, I want to thank the SBA for putting on another informative economic summit. And I want to thank President Machtley and Bryant University. It's the first time I've been in this great facility, and I see how it was ranked #1 in the nation. And it's welcoming, it's bright, and it's a place where innovation is going to happen. So thank you for having foresight to put something like this together. And every time I come to Bryant, they're doing something new, something different, something better. And that's what innovation and growth and moving forward is all about. You guys can't seem to get it, and you really get it well. So congratulations, and we look forward to the great things that are going to continue to happen at Bryant and throughout the state. I want to thank Mark Hayward and all of the members of the SBA committees for your continued hard work and advocacy on behalf of small business. Every year something comes out of this economic summit or many things come out of this economic summit that we try to effectuate through policy, through the legislative process. Liz Nervani, my policy director, is here, and I'm sure she's taking notes has been working on, and through the rest of the session, the work product that comes from this economic summit will be things that we continue to refer back to,